Welcome back to Leading the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We're going to go on with part 2 of Heidi's amazing story here. Heidi, I think I'm going to start off with, I was going to ask you another question, but I've kind of changed my question based on some of the things we've talked about in the parts of your story we've heard. I know that at one point when you actually left, you didn't leave to go home or to be on your own. You were basically by the cult leader placed in kind of an exile or in a place of punishment. And how long do you want to kind of explain what that was, where you were, and how long that lasted?
Okay, so excuse me, I was sent back to Michigan after my very short stay in Florida. And I was sent to another one of the members' homes. And basically, I lived there from December until about July. She was in charge of me. She, spied on me. She told on me on a daily basis back to the leader. Um, the thumb that I lived under in that house was insane. I mean, this woman took her job seriously and she reveled in it. She just loved to give me the correction. I heard every day, well, God told me that you are this, and God told me that you are that. You better repent. And she continuously, every day, reminded me and rubbed in my face that, your sister and your ex-husband, well, he wasn't even my ex at the time, they have to learn to fall in love because they have to be married. It's God's will. So I was completely reminded every day that, I better quit living in self-pity and being sad for myself, because how do you think Nathan and Aaron feel? Your sister and your ex-husband feel. They have to, learn to love each other. And it was every day. Every day I lived under scrutiny. I had the leader calling me, screaming at me for the demons that I had sent through the phone to her. And then, of course, I'd get scolded again from, I call her the spy, my babysitter. I started begging God to find me somewhere to live. And I immediately got a job, which was just incredible. I had not worked in years. I was a stay-at-home mom. And so I got there I left Florida the 7th of December, got to Michigan the 9th, interviewed for a job, a week or two later, and had it. And it was a really great job at a dementia unit. And I was hired in as a med technician, shift supervisor. So it was a really cool job, and immediately started working basically the 1st of January. Didn't make much, didn't know how I was going to live on my own, because when they sent me out the door, they only allowed, I don't know if it's they allowed, but Nathan, my ex, gave me $1,000. And he did give me our Jeep. He did actually continue to pay for my Jeep until it was paid off, and then handed me the title. So that was actually a huge blessing. I would have not been able to, pay for a car and car insurance. And so he did cover that for 5 years. So I started working, not making very much money, and just praying, God, get me out of here. I need to get out of here, because I knew things were bad. I knew it was a mess and was not comfortable there.
So this was the point when you were actually ready to get out or leave the cult, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had actually been kicked out.
Right.
They just kept me for 6 months so they could watch me and make sure I kept my mouth shut.
Right.
And I did. I lived in fear for those 6 months to keep my mouth shut. I didn't tell. I mean, while I was in this group, I cut off friendships of friends that I had had since I was 9 years old. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. And I was very alone. I didn't have anybody to talk to except for the spy and one other woman. Those were the 2 people I was with. But I went to an apartment complex in the little town that I lived in. And I talked to the manager and he says, oh, yeah, we can get you on our waiting list. It's going to be about a 2-year wait. And I'm like, oh, dear God, I can't wait 2 years, And these were low income apartments that I could, afford according to my income, which was nothing. So I'm like, great God, 2 years, holy crap. And so, but I took that step out in faith and just started buying little things for my own place because I wasn't allowed to take anything with me when I left Florida. What I could get in my Jeep is what I had. So my whole entire household and everything that I had collected for years stayed in Florida. And so I started collecting, going to, Goodwill and garage sales, and somebody had given me a really beautiful couch. So I started collecting up all this stuff, thinking one day I'm going to have my own place. And things were getting intense at this spy house. I mean, it was just insanity.
Well, some of the thing is that I'm sure to some degree because you were still in that environment, you were still under that mental control.
I was totally, yes. And so, I mean, I was, again, on my knees praying, God, fix me, fix me, fix me. I had not yet realized that it was a cult that I had been in, or, the extent of all the really bad stuff that I had been a part of. So I was told 2-year wait. I just happened to be driving by this apartment complex again one day after I put my application in, and I went in and the guy said, you know what, we actually have an apartment opening next week and you're next on the list. And I'm like, what? And so I went back to the spy's house and I told her, I'm like, holy cow, I get to get in my own apartment in a week. And she actually looked at me and said, I cannot believe God is blessing you the way he is and giving you back anything that you're getting. And I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Because to her, I was so bad, so rebellious, had rebelled against God so bad, almost losing my salvation that I didn't deserve, and so that kind of shocked me. It didn't, it doesn't now, but
right.
I was like, what, and so I did end up getting into my own apartment, and oh my gosh, it was in my own apartment. I was there for 2 years that I completely cut off all ties with anybody that had anything to do with that cult. I quit seeing the 2 ladies at the spy's house. I completely blocked, deleted phone numbers, anybody that had anything to do with that group.
And was that still your sister and your mom at that point?
I did stay in contact with my mom, not my sister, of course,
Right. So was your mom still part of the group then at that point too?
She was. And she actually even said the same thing to me. It was kind of funny because my ex-husband and my sister decided that they were going to give me back most of my stuff from the house in Florida. So my mom actually drove a truck up with a lot of my stuff. So I got all my stuff back, which was really cool. And when my mom came up, she said, I'm just really surprised that God's given you all this stuff back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you people kidding me? And so once I got into my own apartment, then I got the nerve to start blocking and deleting everybody. And I knew in my spirit, as soon as I blocked and deleted all these people, something was going to happen. I knew it. For sure. About a week later, my mom calls and she says, well, I just need to let you know that God's not going to let me talk to you anymore. And I'm like, okay, Mom. And I knew it was Karen, the leader. God told me to tell you that you can't talk to Heidi anymore because her demons are coming through the phone to me. I mean, that was the story of my life. All my demons come through the phone to everybody, apparently.
Wow.
And so that was very heartbreaking that my own mother, I can't talk to you anymore. I don't know when that'll ever be, if I'll ever be, but God just doesn't want me talking to you right now. And I knew she was brainwashed and, and so that was extremely horrible. That was a very heartbreaking thing to hear, but I knew that it wasn't my mom.
Right.
And so, of course, I knew that relationship, of course, one day would be restored also. And I prayed all the time that my mom and my sister and my ex-husband at this point would all have the veil removed from their eyes and that they would see the truth and that they would all get kicked out like I did, And it probably was, I want to say 4 months later, I get a text message from my mom and she's like, can we talk? And I'm like, holy cow, yeah. And we talked and, she apologized and we cried together and, she was kicked out. I said, Mom, did you get kicked out? And she's like, in a roundabout way. I'm like, yeah, okay. So you got any salvation left? Anyway, it wasn't funny, but I knew it was coming. I knew everybody would be one by one kicked out. So, yeah, it was 6 months of under the microscope,
Wow.
and until I got out on my own. And that was when I was given a book by a very dear friend. And she and her husband walked me through this whole entire process and were awesome to me through this. And they both would just look at me and go, Heidi, the stuff she teaches isn't even biblical. You cannot believe this stuff. And I'd be like, no, it's for real. And they'd be like, oh my gosh. And it took them about 6 months to a year, gently saying to me, this isn't okay. This is not how God works. That is not even biblical. And it was, I want to say,
That's a hard time, Heidi. That's the transition period where part of your mind is still under the brainwashing and you're still in the cult, and then your other part of your mind is trying to get yourself out, and it's a constant struggle. It's a very,
yeah,
very mental and emotional
yes,
struggle. I
it
remember
was
that struggle, and
hard.
that is a
It was,
very hard struggle because you go back and forth constantly. It's like, well, maybe what if they're right? What if that is true? What if that's the truth?
yeah,
Now I'm going to hell, and then you go back and go, no, 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 that's not logical.
yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and it's very confusing.
Absolutely. And I like I said before, when I got out of that, I didn't know which way was up. I had no clue. I was so mentally messed up. But like I said about it, I would say 6 months to a year after I was into my own apartment, this really good friend of mine gave me this book, and it's called Unmasking the Jezebel Spirit. And she says, I want you to read this with an open mind. I'm like, okay. And she goes, don't pin it to Karen. Just read it with an open mind. So I started reading this book, and I had to repent so many times because I'm like, holy crap, this is Karen. This is the leader. This is my mother-in-law. This is what they did to me. This is the spirit that sat on them. I mean, everything this book said, they did. And it took me about 6 weeks to read that book because I could only do little bits at a time, because it was shocking to realize I had been duped. I was in a cult. I was in a really bad situation. And I got to the part where it talks about, I couldn't even give you the exact example in that book or what it said, but I had realized that my time, those 4 years in that group, I had actually practiced witchcraft with my mother-in-law and Karen in the name of God. I had no clue that I was actually doing things that Wiccan teaches and people who practice Wiccan practice. I was mortified. I was on my knees crying and asking God to forgive me, and just blown away that I had summoned demons with them, but it was under the guise of, we need to find out what dark angel is affecting me, Karen. She was always under attack. God had taken her mantle and put her in the place of Job so that she could know how, everybody in this world felt. And, it was really bad. And I practiced witchcraft with them. There's no
Wow.
chivalry left. And so once I repented and got through that book and realized, I mean, it was so hard for me to even say the C word, cult. I was so afraid to even say that word because I couldn't believe that is exactly what just happened to me. And I got over that really quick. And then I got mad. And then I was mad. I was furious. And so I would say probably the middle of 2017 is when I got mad, because I had realized what the crap just happened. I was angry. I was like, I'm not going to church. I don't want to have anything to do with church, Christians. Holy crap, just, I was so ashamed, because the spiritual gifts that I know the Lord had given me before the cult, she completely abused them. I used them and abused them, didn't know I was, using them and abusing them. And I felt so ashamed. I was just in shock. And then I was mad.
That's part of the grieving process, because you do have to grieve it. It's a loss. It is. It's a normal to go through that angry stage. I spent years in an angry stage.
Yeah, I stayed angry. I mean, stayed super angry for about a good year, 2017 to 2018. And it wasn't until later in 2018 that I was really struggling, the effects of just figuring out what the heck had happened were really just coming down, and it was overwhelming. And during this point, I got into a relationship with, my now husband, and I can't even explain to you my mental thought process of trying to process and wanting to please God and rely on my faith, and just the torment in the fight, both sides. I didn't even know what to think. And slowly but surely, I mean, we ended up getting married in August of 2019. So just a little over a year ago. And before we got married, things got real bad, and for me, I was not handling life well at all. And I decided I needed some help. And so I went to conventional counseling, to a woman who did EMDR therapy, taking memories and trying to put it in the right part of your brain. And it made me really angry. So I was like, right. And I knew deep down that going to somebody that was not godly was not going to help me. I knew God was the only way I was going to get out of this. And how do you do that when you're so burned and so leery? And I found someone that I've known since I was a child that I absolutely trust, a good woman, good Christian woman. And I have been counseling with her since late 2018 and dealing through, the after effects. I mean, there's still a lot that I'm dealing with. So
21 years later, and I'm still dealing.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
what,
yeah.
26 years for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I still, I mean,
that.
I definitely feel like I've come a long way, but I still have revelations. I mean, I still, and that's that, and I'm sure when you were going through that stage too, I remember going through these stages and still having revelations where I would see that something, or remember that something that had happened, and I started reading more about how cults work and all of that stuff, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, something you thought was completely innocent, you're like, no, that they were covertly controlling in that aspect, and you didn't even know it. Because your mind doesn't think that way. You think it's something innocent, and then you're like, oh wait, that was manipulation. I was being manipulated then, and I didn't know it. It's crazy.
It was truly shocking when I started getting, I totally believe it was God. And he would only give me little bits here and there, because I could only handle little bits here and there.
Absolutely.
If he had said, hey, here's the big picture, I probably would have lost my entire mind, for real.
Right.
But yeah, those revelations came over and over, maybe a few days apart, maybe a few weeks apart. And even still today, I'll think of something that happened while I was in that group, and I'd be like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be like, that's why that happened, or that's why she did that, or
Yeah. So I'm thankful that God did it that way for me, that it was just little bits here and there, because I truly don't think my mind could have
handled it.
Dealt with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heidi, what, if anything, do you feel you learned from your cult experience?
Well, I would like to say that I'm a more loving person, but that's not true. You know, I think that I deal, you got that look. I think, I think that I've been able to, let's say, I don't think I will trust people as easily and be so naive. I'm definitely more on guard, especially when it comes to Christians. And like I said, very few people in my life that are Christians that I trust right now. Like literally maybe one or two.
I understand.
I learned, even though I don't feel like it, that I'm a strong, tough ass cookie because man, I don't know who could go through some of the stuff that I've gone through and keep on walking. I might not smile every day and I might not be the most happy person, but I'm not dead. I did want to die. There were times I wanted to die, you know. And I even sat up in bed one day and thought about taking my life, and then I was like, what the crap am I thinking? You know, no way. I firmly believe, and I told you girls earlier in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for the good of those who love him. And I know, even though I was so burned and I'm so leery, I still love God. I still love Jesus. They're my bread and butter, you know. And even in my darkest times, I knew, and I know he'll get me through. He's going to fix these things in me, and he is going to use these horrific, horrific events in my life for good. I've always known that. And so when the thought of suicide came across my mind one morning when I was sitting on my bed, I was like, no, no way. I'm not letting this go to waste. I can't.
No.
I mean, it's hard. It's scary. I have insecurities. I have fear. I have a lot of leftover effects from that cult. I mean, I'm not going to blame all of my problems on the cult. I am a sexual abuse survivor. I do have post-traumatic stress syndrome from a lot of things in my life, a lot of crappy situations. The cult just kind of iced the cake for me and put me into an insecurity and in a state where I feel like I don't have self-worth. I'm not lovable, you know. It has been a difficult walk. And I know I'm answering and talking way too much. You know, the man that I'm married to now is just awesome. A wonderful, kind, loving, giving man. And he gets the brunt of this every day. And that is the hardest thing for me right now, is that someone who fights for me, who loves me, who took my child in that's not his, and loves us, gave us a home, treats us like we are his world. And I'm a snide, snarky, crabby, sassy, snotty bitch sometimes. Okay, I'm not even gonna say sometimes, every day. You know,
You've come a long way, Heidi, and you're in a healing process, and I'm sure that he is going to be understanding of that. Obviously, you've said that he's a good man, and I think that you found somebody who's going to stand by your side, help you through this, and I think that have you had him watch the interviews with our husbands?
I haven't.
I think that would help him. Don't you think that would help him, Autumn?
Well, when I watched Autumn's husband the other day, that was one of the very first things that went through my mind is my husband could totally listen and talk to him, you know.
Absolutely.
I felt like there was hope, you know, not that I need him to watch or talk to somebody else to excuse my behavior, because there's no excuse for the behaviors that I still have, you know.
It's healing. We're all a work in progress. I'm sure you do a little bit better every day, Heidi.
Well, I'm trying. I fail a million times a day. You know, good people, good men. I mean, he's a good man. They can only take so much. And that's one of the hardest things for me is he's had to deal with this mess, and it's not fair.
The reason why I'm so quiet is I'm looking in the mirror, Heidi. I'm looking in the mirror. You said something a little bit back that you just hope that you help, or that there some blessings from the Romans verse will come from this. Let me tell you this. Let me be a witness. You've helped me today.
Me too.
And the experiences that you have gone through and the way that you reacted or acted, I'm going to tell you what was the biggest gift you gave to me today. I don't know if you said it on an interview or when we were talking in between. You had said that you are praying for Karen and the spy. Heidi, I'm from the South, so when we say, "Oh, I will pray for you," it's usually sarcastic, But when you told me you were praying for them, that touched my very soul, because it made me sit and think as I was listening to you, I'm not there yet. And I've been out a lot longer than this woman has. And here she is thinking that she is nothing, that she's not even worth the dirt that's on the bottom of her shoes. But yet here she sits and she prays for the very two women that brought you pain. Heidi.
Well, that destroyed your life. And you know what, Heidi? It really says a lot about who you are and how big your heart is. And the type of person you are at your core.
Well, yes. I do want to say it hasn't been easy to pray for Karen or my ex-mother-in-law or the spy. There have been times when I've spoke so badly about them, just so filled with judgment and offense and hatred. But I don't want to walk in that. I want to be like Job, who prayed for his dumb friends. I want to bring healing to myself, for God to bring healing to myself. And if loving my enemy and praying for them is the way it's got to be done, then I'm not great at it. Believe me, guys, that go back and forth, how angry I am. These people are destructive, and I'm not the only one they did this to. They have done this to so many people. I go back and forth being angry at them and asking God to forgive me for being angry and helping me to forgive them, and to ask God to bless them according to his will. I don't even know what to pray for those people, because they're obviously very deceived and very destructive.
What you just said right there is so much more to bless them. There's no way, Melody, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not there yet. I'm trying to be, but Heidi, I am in just absolute.
And you know what? Don't be hard on yourself for the healing process, Heidi. I've used this term many times in our other episodes. I've said it. I like to use the term because it is, to me, it really describes it the most accurately. I liken it to spiritual rape. You have been spiritually raped, and it is difficult to come through that. And you have already come a long way for how, like Autumn said, for how long or the short amount of time that you've been out, you've already come a long way in your healing process. And your story is an inspiration, I think, not only to us, but to anybody who's going to be watching this. Absolutely.
1,000%.
I don't want people watching to think, "Whoa, she's got it all together," because I don't. I do not have it all together. I struggle every day with selfishness. I struggle every day with anger. I struggle every day with trying to control everything around me. And I think I'm trying to do the self-protection thing, and that is one of the problems that, my husband and I have going on right now, is for me to feel safe I have to control everything. And for me to feel safe, it's easier to go to the anger to defend myself when there's no reason to defend myself. I'm the one acting like a jerk. But
That's all the after effects. I mean, I don't even think you are fully admitting to yourself all that you've been through, and you need to give a little bit of grace to yourself to say, I'm going through this because I'm in my healing process. And no, I may slip, I may fall, I may, end up in a ditch, but I'm going to just keep getting up and keep trying, because you really, I don't think you are seeing yourself for how far you've really come. I think
No.
that, I mean, like Autumn said, we've been out, both of us, for 20 some years. And I think that where you are for having left in 2015, is that right? 2015?
At the end of 2015,
The end
yeah.
of 2015. And in a 5-year period, I can tell that you're in an expedited healing process in comparison. And
Does not feel
I
like
second
it.
that, sister. I second that.
Thank you.
do you have any advice for anybody else that may be watching that has either currently in a situation that may be a cult and they may not be fully aware of it yet, or that has recently come out of a cult? What would be your advice?
Well, there's always help somewhere. You can get out. You're not going to be on your own. You're not going to be alone. You may be kicked out and brandished the sinner, but hey, we got 3 sinners sitting right here that are doing just fine. And they can talk about you. They can say what they want once you're out. Let them talk. They have no power over us anymore. There's still, I told you girls earlier, there's a little bit of anxiety knowing that this could potentially get back to one of them. And it's going to be out there for the world to see, Somebody might run across it and be like, hey, she's spilling all the beans, So what? You know what? Let them talk. Let them curse you. My thinking is God is going to bless me for the curses that have been cursed on me. And he's taking care of me, and he's walking me through this. And even if you don't believe in God and you're trying to get out of a cult, there's always someone. There's always someone you can reach out to. There's hope beyond the pit. I mean, when I got out, I've said it a few times, I didn't know which way was up. I had no clue. I was so mentally messed up. And to be alone, I didn't want to be alone. I wanted a family. I wanted my husband. I wanted my home.
Yep.
God's given me that back, He's given me everything back,
Absolutely.
Heidi, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with everybody who's watching, but I'm going to be a little selfish here. Thank you for giving me the gift that you've given to me today. I would kind of like to ask people who are watching this, because this song is just playing and over and over and over in my head. 10th Avenue North, You Are, is the name of the song by 10th Avenue North. Listen to the words and know, and this is a saying that I often tell people because it is so true. You are worth more than the sum of your past mistakes. And Heidi, honey, I'm here to tell you, you are worth so much, not just to me, but to Melody and to all those that are watching. I thank everybody for tuning in today. Please comment in the section below, encourage Heidi, tell her how fabulously she is doing and how fabulous she will do. I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Leaving the Lies and Telling Your Truths. Also, come on over to Facebook and join our group, Leaving the Lies and Telling Your Truths. For anybody that's watching that has a story, whether in the House of Yahweh or in another cult, please come share your stories, because it is such a gift to everybody who hears it. Heidi, I've just met you, but I've got to tell you, girl, I love you. I am very fond of you, and thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same. You guys are awesome. Thank you for this
you, Heidi.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Have a fabulous day, everyone. Bye.